Wait, so are you doing the announcement now?
I am.
Can we just use this one?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's change that. There we go. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I have a few announcements and I'll be quick because Tori wants to start imminently. So before we get started, I want to give you some logistics of the day. There are 3 bathrooms. There's one here. There are 2 bathrooms in the house. We will have a break in the middle of the 3 hours, and there'll be a lot of people who will be wanting to use the bathroom in here. So if you need to, you can quietly during the talk, when Tori's talking, get up and go to the bathroom here. Feel free to go outside. Just make sure that none of the neighbors can see you, especially the ones back there. When you do go in the house to use the bathroom, make sure Tori's in there, because if Bodhi is in there, her dog, Bodhi will react if somebody comes into the house. So let's see. There will be signs pointing to the bathrooms. Please don't go in any doors that are closed. And yeah, that's it for the bathrooms. If anybody needs a back jack, there are back jacks over there. Please grab one before Tori comes out and get started. Are they gone? One back jack. Okay. If you can't hear Tori, either you folks here or anybody on Zoom, please, well, you guys can let us know, and on Zoom, send me a chat. I'll be checking chats for the morning. Let's see. Bodhi, Tori's lovable dog, is in training to be a service dog right now. So this is probably his first on-the-job training. So Bodhi will be coming in with Tori, and hopefully he'll be fine. If he's not, I'll take him out and give him a treat or something, but he should be fine. Let's see. For those who are not on the Golden Bowl Sangha email list, if you want to be, come see me afterwards and I'll get you on the list, and that'll, you'll be informed of other shorter retreats or Zoom retreats that Tori has. Her next retreat like this is scheduled for September 26th, if she is able to do it at that point. That's what she's carved out. So that's it for now, I think. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'll go get her. Thanks. So. Sit down. Sit. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Whew. Let's begin by offering the Torma, like we did last time. If you remember that this is the offering of the little cake, which we offer, which is really just almonds, but we're offering this to the unseen world. Hard to hear with the plane going over. That we're offering this to the unseen world. And what we're doing is we're inviting in, not just inviting, but welcoming in all that we think is beautiful, that we're proud of in ourselves, that we think is something that we think, the things that we love about the world, while simultaneously we invite in all that we are embarrassed about, that we're challenged by, that we dislike, that we think is unforgivable. So we equally invite that into our heart, and then we offer a little cake to it. And we say, you are all included and invited. So let's just have that sense of just bringing that in, and just for a moment, just have that sense of being so open that you're willing to invite in even what you might be struggling with right now. Think of all the things you think are beautiful and wonderful in this life, and all that is hard. And we invite in the seen and the unseen worlds to guide and protect us in this time together. And then we will offer at the end of the day. So good to see all of you and to have you all here in my home. So let's begin with a meditation, because really anything that I would teach today would be covered in our meditation. So if everything else fails, if I for some reason can't talk it after I just drop dead, at least we have practiced together. And just so you know, one of the things that happens for me with the ALS is that I can get very bad cramps at times throughout my body. And they've been happening a little bit more last night and today. So when that happens, I might just clench my teeth for a moment. And if I lose my voice, I haven't talked for a day so that my voice was rested, but I will put on an amplifier. So just so you know. Okay, so just find a comfortable position if you aren't in it already. You might close your eyes or let your eyes be at a downward, unfocused gaze. Are you checking the chat? Oh, okay. And first, let's just offer whatever comes from this sitting and from this day, this time together. Let's just offer it to the benefit of all beings. That whatever comes from our insights, our love, our settling, our quiet, that it's not just for us, but it is to be given freely out to the world. So we begin by opening our hearts. And so take a moment and just feel what it is to be you right now. Feeling the quality of your emotional state, the quality of your mind and your body.
This is not thinking about it, it's just feeling it, sensing it. And sense your pelvic floor nestled up against your cushion or the chair or whatever you're sitting on. So you feel your root. Really push right up against that so you really feel yourself connected to the earth. And then bring your awareness to your breath. And as if your diaphragm was a jellyfish moving through water in its very fluid, sweeping, gentle way. As if your diaphragm as a jellyfish was moving all the way up to the top of your head and down to the soles of your feet. So it'll probably deepen your breath a little, and that's more your natural breath. We breathe so shallowly into our chest. This just allows a more natural sweeping breath. And let your awareness just drop into your low belly, feeling the movement of your pelvic bones and your hips and your pelvic floor, your belly, as they move with this breath down in your low belly. And while resting in your low belly, let yourself listen to the sounds, as if you were listening to the sounds from your low belly. And just let go for this moment of your busy, scheduled filled lives. And that just let things be here. If you're cold, feel cold. If your mind is busy, notice what it's like to have a busy mind. If you're resistant, notice what it's like to be resistant. But keep returning back into this breath and this depth of your low belly. And see what it's like to relax your brain, literally the muscle of your brain, and relax the tiny fibers of your muscles and tendons and ligaments, so that you can sit here in this very elegant posture, but totally, completely relaxed. When you begin to relax, really relaxing in your belly, you might begin to notice this quiet, this stillness, that all sound and all movement arises out of and returns back into. Really orient towards that quiet stillness. Relaxing deep into your belly. Sense the quiet, the stillness in your body as a felt sense. So it's not a thought about the silence, but it's actually felt within the body. Often it can be described as kind of a black, velvety feeling within the body. Just orienting towards that silent stillness that permeates everything. Just this moment. So all there is just this moment. And now this moment. Just one moment after another. Just be here with this moment. And this moment can only be experienced through your sense perceptions, not your thought. Your thoughts are only about past and future. The only way to experience this moment is through your body, through your senses. Being here in this moment, you are such a part of the earth. When you are inhaling, the plants are exhaling. In and out, the world breathes together. And every time you find yourself solidifying around a thought, spinning a thought, see what it's like to just come back to, I don't know. I really, really don't know. I don't know. When we do that, we're left in this very available, open place. So when all the thoughts cease, even if for a moment, what remains? Don't answer that with your mind. Just drop the question in there and just sit in that. What remains? Feel it. The quiet stillness. It's the place where a terminal diagnosis or any of the other endless heartbreaking things that we as humans confront is not affected. This endless, vast, mysterious place of the soul. The place that will never be born and never will die. I thought about how I might want to start, and I thought I was just going to say, just go stare into space, because we so need time to just stare into space. we as in our Western culture don't do that very much. So I want to start with a Suzuki Roshi quote. He said, "Life is like stepping onto a boat which is about to sail out to sea and sink. I'm curious, as we start, what, if anything, was left after our time together last month? If there's anything that anybody wants to share that stood out for them or they're still working with, and we'll have other opportunities to come back to that. Anything that has held since then? So then I would ask the question, right in this moment, as you sit here, I mean, you might want to close your eyes for a moment, is to ask the question, what is my relationship to death as I sit here right now? Do I feel dissociated around it? Or is there fear? Is there excitement or curiosity or wonder? Just notice without any judgment at all. So primarily what I want from our time together when we meet, as often as we will meet in this form, is I really want to look at death in the face and see it as this part of this beautiful natural cycle of existence. So I want, if I can, to help us all lose our fear of death. And I want to help us all learn how to die so that we really can really live this life. So to do that, we have to let death in the room. We have to talk about my death, your death, and how to live our lives knowing about this death. I just want to say I am really, really comfortable talking about my death and the uncomfortable things that might be around it. So if you when you ask questions, when we're at times of asking questions, just feel free to just ask it bluntly. People often will say to me, you know, when we're talking about like even the physical therapists and the voice therapists, they come and they say, you know, when you can't, and you know, when you're gonna, and it's sort of like, just say it, like, let's just get in there and say it. And that there's something in that when we can talk like that, it's just so natural. It's so seamless, like we're born, we die, we use the restroom, we, you know, eat dinner. That's, to the natural world, that's what death is. It's nothing, it's everything. And there's some way that we get so tied into this idea that death is wrong and we will fight it tooth and nail. So I want to, as I did last time, the way that I am finding that I can teach with the most authenticity right now about death is to talk about my own process as a way of opening up to and teaching about death in general, the questions around death. So I'm just going to begin that way, and then I'm going to share different aspects of what's been moving me that comes out of that, and hopefully will have some benefit for you. And then we'll have times where there'd be some contemplation, another meditation, and times of just sharing and having question time and whatnot. So I am becoming undone. I am unraveling. And simultaneously, I am becoming, as we all are. So I am consciously letting the unraveling happen so that the becoming has more room. So I looked up to unravel. Mean, in other words for it are to undo or to untangle, to unsnarl, to unwind. To unravel is to reveal what is exposed or what is hidden when the tangle is loosened. I loved that. So in becoming undone, what I mean by that is that there's a sense of my identification that is changing because of my understanding of my mortality. So just when I talk, feel into it, put it on yourself. Think about what's happening internally inside of you, about places where you maybe aren't allowing the unraveling or you are unraveling. And maybe there are small ways that you're unraveling that may not be in relationship to your own death, but to some other transition or threshold that's happening in your life. So in becoming undone, I feel freer, less daunted by the challenges of life, more able to let go at times. And we're going to be talking a lot about letting go. More freed up from my sense of identities and my shoulds. A lot of shoulds driven my life, and those are starting to ease. From my defense mechanisms, from a heart that has been checked out at times. I find myself cutting to the chase more quickly. And for you who have known me to always cut to the chase quite quickly, that means it's rapid fire at times. So I am living more close to the bone. And in the becoming, I find myself becoming more of my fundamental nature, becoming more identified with soul than with my ego. I am becoming more undomesticated. I am becoming someone who loves more deeply, and this is a surprise to me. I'm becoming a bit kinder. I'm experiencing physical changes daily, more weaknesses in my body. I'm losing my ability to articulate in my voice when I am tired, and that's the beginning of the loss of my voice. I get extremely tired at times. I need a brace on my leg to walk. And I'm having to set up for all these crazy systems like banking my voice so that they can synthesize my voice when I lose it. Learning how to eye gaze type. The rep brought up, would you like the 13-inch model or the 24-inch model screen for when you have to eye gaze to type? And I just looked at it and I said, scrambled eggs up here, like I'm not there yet. Whew. And it's getting all, I have to learn how to type using my eyes. And then that will write a sentence, and then that sentence will be synthesized from my voice, and then that voice will come out. So I'm having to do all these gizmos, things for opening doors and buttons. And anyways, it's like quite fascinating, actually. I had to decide what kind of wheelchair I would want and padding for the wheelchair. And how to learn how to, we're going to remodel my house, setting up disability and Medicare, talking to lawyers about Medicaid. Everything is fast-tracked when you have ALS because your life expectancy is so short. So I am completely overwhelmed with all of this at times. And that gives me more to work with each time I feel this sense of overwhelm. I meet with other ALS folks sometimes to get an idea of what's ahead. This now feels an important part of the process, and that can be daunting. But when I get afraid, I get as close to the fear as I can. I look it right in the face and I feel it and I get to know it, and I don't push it away and I don't grab it. And that way it doesn't have a grip on me. I taste it and I roll around in it and then realize it has already dissolved because I did not let it have control. Because that fear was actually not about what was happening right now, but it was about what was in the future. I am finding that I am being confronted with more loss and having to let go of more and more things at a faster and faster pace. There are more endings and more coming to terms with all the things I will never do. And until this time, I thought I might do all of them. I have to stay on the razor's edge more precisely and more demandingly. So as the longing in me at times gets stronger for the things that I still might want to do. And I'm saying this to all of you, I'm not just talking about me. Notice the longing inside of you as I talk, the things you want, the things you longing, whether it's an adventure, whether it's a food, whether it's a partner, whether it's a job, whether it's a feeling you want in your body. Notice how the longing is there and how strong the pull to that can be. And when I talk about staying on the razor's edge, that I notice that when I turn towards that longing, if I turn towards the object of the longing, there is profound suffering. But if I experience the longing as it is, like the fear, if I just experience it and eat it, the feeling of it, the object of the longing goes away, and I am back on the razor's edge. If I reside on the razor's edge, the satisfaction of being on that edge is more profound and more complete than the object, getting the object of my longing. That is something I can't tell you how much I want you to feel in your own body, because we spend so much time on this side of the razor's edge in that longing. And when we can come back, the experience of being right on the razor's edge, right in this moment where we meet God, the mystery, spirit, it is, for me, the most satisfying, complete sense of totality. I cry much more easily than I ever have in my life. And most often that feeling is of a profound love that I have never experienced at this level. It's looking at things that a person that I love, a tree, my dog, the sunset. And that is such a gift. Have you ever noticed when you cry, these little muscles right here, just like they want to pull your mouth down, just like a little baby, you know? And you notice now why they do that. But I feel this love as the most essential and intelligent creative energy underlying everything. I'm seeing that it actually generates existence. It generates life. And we are completely inseparable from that. We are it. And it's not like attached love or romantic love, but this force that moves existence. I'm finally understanding what I talked about last time, in that sense that when I did all the reading of the hundreds of near-death experience, that when people who had died and come back, that what they said is, oh my, if you had any idea how much love there is, we would live our life differently. That was across hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of near-death experiences. And I feel like there's something about when we are given the understanding on a cellular level of our mortality, that we actually come in contact with that energy that often can be mistaken as negative or as threatening in some way. When what I realize is I think it is an attempt by existence for us to touch us, since nothing's separate from that energy. It's very, very intimate. It is everything. And we can't separate out anything from it, but it's the force of existence. So even the so-called negative things that happen are invitations to touch this force. And when I do, it pushes me to open further. And when I listen carefully from my belly, right, I can feel this constant pull of that energy. And it lies under the confusion, just under the confusion of all of our minds. It's so accessible, but it's like a fish in water. We don't recognize it. I'm seeing how easy it is to forgive and accept and appreciate when life feels so finite. I get how essential it is to forgive. And this is a deep part of the process of letting go, is getting all the tiny little places where we have not forgiven. And I'm going to come back to this in a bit. I grieve more fully and more cleanly. And what I mean by that is that when we bear the unbearable, I see as God sees and I love as God loves. All of us. It's like letting a thunderstorm move through, and when it is finished, the sun comes out. Right? That is how flexible and clean we need to be. It comes, we feel it, it goes. That's the living close to the bone. So close to the bone. I have taught for 30 some odd years, and I have practiced for 47, and I am just really, really getting now how consciousness itself is unbroken and indestructible, and that this life is just one small experience among an unending journey of experiences. And at the conclusion of this experience, I call this life, I will simply slip out of my Tory body and relax once more into a much larger existence. All of us will. I say, of course I would have that feeling when I get terrified or overwhelmed or sad or confused. Of course I would have that feeling. This is a godsend to me. Of course we would all have these feelings. It is a big deal to be in the human body. I am realizing that to really wake up, I think we have to know of our mortality. Not here, but we have to feel it in some part of our bones and not just go merrily on our way and stay hooked into our ego without even knowing we're hooked in our ego. And this is the gift. And that's why I want to keep talking about it, because it is what allows us to wake up. So I'm having this sense of how sacred we all are. We're very spiritual in nature, and yet we're so animal in nature. We're very primitive, and yet also this vast, mysterious being. And I see my animalness and I see my sacredness, which allows me to see the animalness in all of you and the sacredness in all of you. I am feeling how the death process, that this force of nature, I'm experiencing more as an energetic force, not as a concept, meaning that I feel the pull of my own death. And sometimes I wonder if I'm too curious about my own death and not actually somehow fighting it off enough. But I don't think so. I keep checking into my body. My body says, this is exactly the path to follow. Now, if I had something other than ALS, I might say, do something different. But since ALS is not curable, this is definitely what my intuitive body tells me to do. And that pull towards death is actually quite strong. And I wonder if all of us could feel that if we let that happen. Not in a way that is negative or bad, but as a part of nature. We're born, we evolve and we grow to the certain point. And then at some point we do start turning towards death, and we are in the process of disintegration towards that. So I choose the honest, clear path of turning towards my death rather than spinning out towards hope. And this is the gift of having this disease. I rest in the koan of not knowing is most intimate. And that is grace. When I give up trying to know or trying to pin things down or trying to solidify me or you or my thoughts or my projections or life, I tighten. So when I rest in not knowing, then I'm available to you, to me, to life. I try to rest in what is not affected by ALS, which is the source. And that's why I practice. And that's why I will talk about practicing or meditation more, because the more that I do, the more that I get the grace of I'm the right person at the right time in the right place, as are all of you. You are in the right body, the right person in the right place at the right time. And that, to really get that and trust that, is a great relief, whatever is happening. The third Zen patriarch, it takes a lot to articulate. The third Zen patriarch said, "The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinion for or against." I want to leave without even an orange. And I say that because the monks in Asia are not even allowed to own an orange. They are given their robes and their sandals, and they can't own anything other than that. There's some idea of renouncing everything to the point that I leave without even an orange. Something so about that. there's something about renouncing the things we hold on to, whether it's physical things. And this is what I talked about last time about cleaving from what we love while still loving. So whether that renouncing is something that we physically give up, but it's renouncing the attachment. So for instance, when I do lose my voice, I will be given the gift of a 3-year retreat that I have wanted to go on recently. And that will be a gift if I live for 3 years during that time, which I doubt. And I am afraid to lose my voice because it is the way that I communicate my whole life. It's the way that I have served and felt my connection to all things. But it is a challenge to meet life in a new way of how will I connect with others. So I will finish this part by just saying, I am finding that dying is truly the ultimate spiritual practice, as is gratitude. And I feel my own profound gratitude to all of you, So how do we prepare for death when we haven't been given the diagnosis? I'm going to read a poem by Martha Postlethwaite. Do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is your life falls into your own cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world, so worth of rescue. I think primarily is we have to get familiar with it. We have to not fear it so much so that it's something that we push away, but it's something that becomes like everyday life. I think this is one of the reasons why meditation is so important, because in meditation, we are asked to sit and watch the arising and the passing of everything, all thoughts, our breaths, all emotion, all sensation. And we just remain sitting like the mountain. The wind, the lightning, the thunder, the heat, the rain comes and goes, and we sit like a mountain. We learn to sit in this moment, just this moment, no other moment, but just this moment. We learn to tolerate discomfort of our humanity. And we learn that when we can do that, we learn to see how does that help us live our life, right? When we step up off the cushion, bam, we're faced with just so much stimulation and input and stuff. And it's hard. It's hard to be a human being. But there's this sense that if we can learn to do that while we sit on a cushion, we can allow life to be life. And we can see over and over and over again that life is not a problem. Even the things we think are so challenging and difficult. So this sense of we learn to let go, which I think as a human being is the hardest thing. And I actually think we talk about letting go, and up until recently, I know that people would say, talk about letting go, and I would go, I have no idea really what that means. I don't know what letting go is. What does it mean to let go, right? It's kind of like, well, it happens in a moment. So when I thought about letting go and talking about it, I came back to the parable of the trapeze. So the trapeze artist is swinging on the bar. She knows that deep within, that there's going to be this other bar that's going to be hurtling towards her, and she's got to let go of one bar and fly through space before she can catch the other one. So we all sit here together in this often very frightening, yet very beautiful space between the bars. The place that is really a place of uncertainty and a place of profound unknowns and aliveness and potential. We could say the bars are between birth and death. We could say any transition or threshold crossing, especially in threshold crossings, when your intuition has told you to let go before you know the next thing you're going to do. This is a really important one. This is very hard for us to let go before we've grabbed the other bar. But this is about when we get the intuition that says we have got to let go and we don't know what's going to happen or where we're going to go. And we have to trust that that other bar is going to show up. So it can also be any time when we just have an intuitive hit about something. Could be about leaving a relationship or leaving a job or so many things. So just close your eyes for a moment. I want you to imagine being on a trapeze. You're holding the bar and you're swinging back and forth. And I want you to imagine letting go of the bar and just flying through space in that place of not knowing and uncertainty. And just give me some words of what that feels like. What's that? Butterflies.
Momentum.
Momentum.
Exhilarating.
Exhilarating.
Terror.
Terror.
Learning.
Panic. What was it?
Floating.
Floating.
Rising.
Rising.
Freedom.
Freedom. Awesome. That is the place we have to have discipline, which is actually the opposite of what we might think we need to have in that moment. And when I say that is to, one moment. Oh. So to live this authentically and this intimately with uncertainty and change is not what our ego self does very well. In fact, it hates it. It hates it. It will do everything to not let go of that bar and fly through space. It just is like, And so we have to have this great trust in ourselves and in our intuition and in spirit, in life itself. And we have to learn in that moment to work with our mind, because our mind is going to tell us to rubber band back to the bar. So when we surrender in this way, do we have faith? I ask it, do you have faith, or do we as humans have faith that there is some transcendent force larger than the ego to catch us? That there will be another bar that will meet us? No, we don't. And that's because we don't have faith in this. That's why it is hard to let go. If we had faith in this vast unknowing, letting go would be easy. But this is why we hang on so tight, because we don't have faith that it will be there like this. Myself, believe me, totally included in that. But that's why when we keep doing it, even incrementally, we find something does actually catch us, or there is miraculously a bar that shows up when we don't expect it, right? Has there ever not been when you have let go? I really ask that. Has there ever not been? I don't think you'd be actually sitting in this room if that was the case. And I don't say that lightly, because there are many, many people who are suffering so much in this life who would sit here and say, this is a bunch of bullshit. But I really want you to hear me, that I'm speaking from a place that is not about things going well. I'm talking about the seamless list of life and death. And that does not mean that it looks pretty. And we are very privileged to sit in this room and talk about this. And I know that. If I was starving and wondering where my next meal was going to come from, we would be having a different conversation. But I am asking that you use your privilege right now so that you can wake up to help the rest of the world in some way. Right? So we sit here using our privilege to help us help, to serve, to be kind, to be loving, to be aware, to pay attention. So we've got to find out when holding on to the bar becomes maladaptive to us. And look closely at the difference between when we're clinging to the bar and when we're just not ready to let go yet. Our intuitive voice has not said, now, right? I have this feeling of being on a carousel going around, and there's another carousel going around in the other direction. And I have to stay super open and super fluid and super spontaneous, because that other carousel has doors, and the doors are just, it's like the door is going to come out, open, it opens up, and I have to be ready to jump through. And if I'm available and supple and here in this moment, then when that door opens up and my intuition says go, then we go. I would say that pain and suffering is often what allows us to let go. And when the pain gets strong enough, and sometimes depression can be that there can be enough grief and pain and suffering that actually it gets so bad that we finally do let go. Hopefully we can learn to let go before that point. We really have to stay in not knowing and listen to something that is deeper than the mind. We have to be humbled here. And if you look at the myths, and I've been very interested in a lot of the myths lately, they are about, one has to lose their accoutrements before they go into the underworld, to cross the threshold, to come, to get something, to come back in a different state of consciousness. And that to go to lose your accoutrements, right? You have to let go of, they had to cut their hair off and leave their jewelry, and they have to leave their beauty and whatnot. And they have to stay very focused, right? Think of Persephone and all the myths where they might have just looked away for a moment to the right or the left, or they couldn't hold their consciousness and they couldn't succeed. So it's demanding, it asks our focus. That's why I say we have to be very disciplined. And how do we get disciplined? We learn how to listen from our belly, because our bodies will tell us. Our bodies are what are true and wise. Our minds are fickle. They're a fabulous tool, but they are fickle. So in that discipline, it's continually staying aware, right? The awareness that is behind the thought. We're resting in that awareness that is big and taking in, and even that awareness that is witnessing the busy mind, witnessing the grief, witnessing that there is something that is saying now. We have to know what it is like to have a mind that is running the show. We'll begin to see that the mind is always residing in past or future. We have to be familiar with the mind that is the egoic mind that wants this and does not want that, wants what it wants and does not want what it doesn't want, and wants to do everything in its power constantly to maintain that. And this is where we have to be also know the discipline of being able to tolerate discomfort until we know. What is the bar? So I was thinking about what is the bar that we're holding on to? And I would say the bar is our habitual patterns, the known, what we cling to, all the physical and non-physical stuff that creates problems and keeps us stuck. Might be clutter, shoulds, rigid assumptions, resentments, regrets, self-righteousness, people who are gone from us, we might be holding on to. Unrewarding relationships, black and white thinking, addictions. I could go on and on and on and on. But eventually, we have to let go of the bar. The bar may also be just a transition, the ending of something. And how do we let go of the bar? I'm really trying to make whatever I'm talking about like as like really down to earth. Like, how do we do this? So I think part of it is that we have to, and this is where I come back to, do we have faith in something larger than us? You know, I think we do on one level, but then when we want to let go into that, we go, oh, maybe not. But as we sit here, I would imagine that most of us have some idea that there's something bigger than us. And I think to let go of the bar, we have to start to have faith in that as best we can. Letting go means deeply, deeply listening and returning to the body and listening to something that is not the mind trying to decide what is the right path, because there isn't one. But to keep coming back to the place in the body that has sensation. And that's why I say we have to train to know what is an intuitive feeling. Right? Intuition is not something, intuition, we're born with it, but then we forget and we don't know what it is. But intuition is, we're making choices intuitively all day long. What did that feel like when we decided to turn right, not left? It was a feeling in our body that it was either or right? But we get to know that. We really get to study what is our intuition saying. We should begin to lose our defensive patterns. We have to learn what those defensive patterns are, right? We have to start seeing and accepting this permanently impermanent nature of things, that everything is changing. We have to be super brave. We're going to work a little bit more with letting go of the bar after the break. So why do we rubber band back to the old bar? Usually it's because we want to be in control and we want to be with what's familiar, no matter how painful it might be. So we have to recognize what the feelings are when we're on the old bar. They might be accommodating, dissociating, controlling, negative self-talk, addictions, needing more and more experiences. Only you know what it's like to be holding on and going back to the old bar over and over and over again repeatedly, even though it's so painful. So I think that meditation is what teaches us to live between the bars, in that space of uncertainty and vulnerability, to not knowing, to discomfort. I just want to say one more thing, and then we're going to take a little break. Some of you said, what was it like when you let go of the bars? And what I was feeling when I let go between the bars, every time I do, is I think, who am I between the bars? I am nothing, meaning that I am everything. I'm nothing in that I'm not separate. I'm not an egoic small me. I am free, pure potential, pure creative expression, spontaneous, undomesticated, open, not separate, listening, responding, and untethered. I thought about it, and I thought, when we are not willing to let go, we are not living. And oftentimes we have to leave behind old ways to actually be able to live. And I'll be asking you some contemplative questions in a little bit here. But in thinking about the trapeze, I thought about the art of improvisation. And I have learned some of my greatest spiritual work through improvisation. Many of you in this room have done some great improvisation with me. So here's the primary rule of improvisation. And this is your homework for the rest of your life. The primary rule of improvisation is to say yes to everything, even if you don't like what's being offered. So if you're doing improvisation with somebody, and they do something that you're like going, oh, I didn't want to take it that way, you say yes, and. You don't say yes, but, and try to force it back into another. You say yes, and you take it, and you contribute to it. You enhance it. Whatever has been given to you, you say yes. Yes, I have ALS. Yes, I have cancer. Yes, I have a pimple. Yes, I'm in traffic. Yes, I'm being obsessive. Yes, I am frustrated. Yes, I am in a relationship that is frustrating to me. Yes, now go with it. Yes, and not yes, but. In improv, there are no mistakes, just beautiful, happy accidents. And I would say, if I could give you one thing to walk out of here with, it would be that. Say yes 1,000,000 times in life. So what right now, as you're sitting here, are you saying no to? Just close your eyes for a minute and just see, on some subtle or not subtle level, what are you saying no to about you or your life or others? And see what it's like in this moment to say yes to it. And say yes in that open, curious kind of way that is going to take it and do the best improvisational theater you've ever done. Does this make sense? Does it make sense? This is such a, I mean, when I was taught this before, it has just affected my life so much. So it's asking yourself, where are you holding on in this sense, where that sense of holding on and saying no? So just for another moment, just see, what's it like in this moment to say yes? Yes. Yes, and let this creative impulse happen. Which means, from my own experience, when I am being told I have ALS, I could collapse into that, or I can say, yes, and how does this open me? How do I then move in the world with this? How do I do the best limping dance I can and make it hilariously funny? Because it is funny on some level, this whole process. I mean, yeah, this is some of the jokes when you think about, I have to voice message So meaning I have to like put in all these things that I can have a button to push that will be my little euphemisms. And all my friends are giving me my little euphemisms. And my primary one that most people are giving me is, fuck that. Fuck that. Or you've got to fucking be kidding me. Apparently, I seem to say that a lot. It's a little embarrassing that I'm not saying yes and, but so I will have a thing that will say, fuck that. Anyway, so I ask you just one more time before we take a little break here, just to take a moment and just find your breath once more. Breathe down into your low belly. Big sweeping jellyfish type of breath. And just feel into again, how are you holding on in some way? What are you holding on to in your life? The first part is just the noticing. Where am I contracted? Where am I saying no to my life, to reality as it is? Where am I not available to my life and to the life around me? Is there any place in my life that just by noticing, I can release my grip a little bit more? Or are there actually things in my life that I actually can really let go of? Possibly just by saying yes, yes, yes. This is so paradoxical to our human mind, to say yes, yes, yes. It's also having the wisdom to know that there are things we do need to try to control, to change, possibly a health thing, many things, but it's like in the, oh gosh, what's that? That wisdom, what is that poem? Knowing the difference, the wisdom to know the difference. The serenity prayer, thank you very much. The serenity prayer is knowing what you can change and knowing what you can't, and having the wisdom to know that difference. But it's that sense of when life is showing you, and this is life, life is just being life, saying yes. Even if it's something that you're going to work with or see if you can change in some way, still say yes. Improv, spontaneous improvisation with everything. Okay, and so I just want to open it up for just a few minutes here to ask questions, to share before we take a little break. It's really lovely to hear your voice because you speak for everybody. So if you have thoughts or questions that are coming up or insights, I'd love to hear them. Yeah. And speak up as loud as you can. Sir.
Bodhi got into a beautiful training when I was distracted by when we were talking about using the privilege to investigate not know.
Uh-huh.
And I was
Watching
focused
him.
on beautiful Bodhi for a
Yeah.
little bit. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Isn't he a good boy? He's such a good boy. He's such a good boy. That using our privilege to be in this room, that we're not in a war zone, we're not, so economically deprived, we're not in a difficult health situation. We are all not being persecuted in some way. And that it allows us to have this, to the privilege to be able to stay in the not knowing, to stay in the uncertainty, because our lives, we have so much certainty in our life. And that allows us to be available to actually serve where we're called to serve, and to not use our privilege thinking that we know what others need, but it's the willingness to listen, to be available to listen to other cultures, to other societies, to individuals, to our partners, to our pets, to the world, to the climate, the earth, the whatnot. Does that make sense? Yeah, I leave it.
You talking about the bar, letting go, and do we have to trust in something bigger? And have we chuckle, no, not always. But then you talk about your intuition, and I could just feel that with that you do have that trust. And I know some people in my life who say things like they'll say, my intuition says, as if it said that's the truth. But I know for me, my intuition is wrong a whole lot of times. And so,
Maybe.
Well, I guess there is a maybe to that. But I noticed for me it's one of my places of deep suffering is what do I listen to? What can I trust? Oh, my intuition's through it went exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
So part of my question in that is for you to talk a little bit more about that, but also the developing like little practice. You're talking about coming to the body, which I get that practice, but I don't quite see how that links me to my building my trust in my intuition or building that muscle to know, oh, it wasn't that my intuition was wrong, it was that my mind's interpretation of so I'm just trying to find what I can trust.
Awesome. That's so great, because there's really actually feels like two things that are happening in that. One is, how do we know it's our intuition? Like, how do we know that that's our intuition and not because we saw something on TV and our mind just said, oh, we need to have that, or that's good, or whatever. My experience is that it takes a lot of practicing of this, listening to when I'm doing something that does not have a big ramification. So it's not a big decision. It's a smaller decision. What I do is I go out for a walk, and I go on more of an aimless wander, not on an exercise walk. And I ask the question of myself as I leave, and then I drop it. I drop the trying to find the answer. And I just keep kind of over through the walk, just pose the question. And there's some way that when I return, I seem to know the answer. And it is a knowing of just, it's just, there's just I can't even describe it. It's just annoying. Do people know what I mean by that? It's just sort of it's just sort of like, do we even know, like, do we want spaghetti or do we want pizza? It's like there's a reason why we know what we want to eat. There's an intuitive thing. There's some hit in that if we're deeply listening. If not, it's usually going to be cookies, right? I mean, because we're not listening, right? And we think, well, our intuition is saying, I want cookies. But the thing is about that is that I think that we have to, for me anyway, it has been that I have to listen and notice, where am I going back and picking up the questioning again? Because as soon as I go and pick up the questioning, I muddle what I think is my intuition. So when I get a hit of my intuition, I do not go left or right again. Because what I found is that then I lose my relationship to my intuition, so that my intuition does not speak loudly again. My intuitive hit is not necessarily right for anybody else. So if my partner was saying to me, this is what my intuition, this is right, that's her experience, right? That's her experience. Your experience of the same thing could be completely different. I know that for years, I used to say, when I follow my intuition, it's wrong. And what I looked back into seeing is two things were happening. One, I actually was not listening to my intuition. I was listening to my mind. Or I was listening to my intuition, then immediately going back and second guessing. And then I had nulled out. But the other thing is I learned that what I thought I wanted was so powerful that when I didn't get what I wanted, which is actually the egoic mind working. So if the outcome, what you're saying is, it might be that you're getting what actually was true, but you weren't relating it, or you get something and we go no to it instead of yes to it, right? And we go, damn it, it's wrong, I failed, whatever. That's not saying the yes in that sort of improvisational way to it. And that sets us up to fear that we're going to make a mistake again. And as soon as we're in that, then we're going to be more scared each time we are faced with a decision again, which immobilizes us, right? So that's why I say we have to start in some ways with yes. Yes, 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 this is going to happen. Yes, we'll go with this. Yes, yes, this is going to happen. We're over here. And it's so radical to live that way. But that frees us up, I think, to listen to our intuition. And when I say my intuition, I'm also like, I don't see a raven go by and go, oh, I'm supposed to, a raven goes by and I go, how does that experience make me feel inside when I think about that decision or whatever? So the raven is just inviting me in some ways in life, doing life. The wind could blow, I could hear the aspen leaves, and that brings a feeling in me of more closeness to experience. But if I'm in my busy mind, I am so far away from, because I am constantly trying to find out what is right. And there is no right. Jen?
I love your image of the trapezes. And I love your image of the trapezes, and I have done improvisational aerial dance in my life, so the image really makes sense. And for me, the image also goes with the net, and the net is trust that even if I let go of one bar and the other bar isn't there, something will happen.
Yeah.
And the net might not be lovely, right? It could be, I break my neck in the net. But so I think it's something about trusting any outcome is a good one, which when I was going through a life-threatening illness recently, a really key way that helped me organize to say yes to what was happening was to read this book about a near-death experience, near life and near death, where this person almost died or kind of died, and it was fine. She was fine. She was joyous to die. And then she decided to live longer. And so that's for me the net. It's like, okay, something's gonna happen here. However, after I went through this cancer journey, very shortly after, I went climbing with my daughter in an indoor gym with a self-balloon thing. And she really wanted me to go to the very top. And I had just gone through treatment and I was in pain and I was like, no, that's a good idea, but I went up, I got to the top and I could not fucking let go. And I fought with the, I was like, what if this thing isn't gonna work? And I struggled and like injured my elbow on the way down. It was like, I'm practiced at this stuff. I'm a climber and a dancer. So I can say that I got it going through cancer, but I also didn't.
And that is why we practice, because at the moment of death, you have no choice. There's nothing else to do. You have to let go, and either it's going to be pried out of your hands, or we're going to have practice along the way. So we go, oh, right, I know what to do here. And that's why we're talking about it. Because I don't want it to have to be pried out of your hands in terror at the moment of death. I want you to live your life in such a way that openness, even if we confront those times when we go, I can't let go. I don't want to let go because I don't trust this. There's something in that that is part of the learning of that. That's what we're doing most of the time in our life, is walking around in a contracted state. So that's why reading the near-death experiences, hundreds of them, I read hundreds of them, hearing that people, once they were able to let go, there was no fear. There was so much the sense that it was all so okay, beyond okay. But that's why we practice over and over again. And that's why I do think that meditation, and I'll talk more about that later, is so important, because we learn how to let go on these little levels all the time. Because I guarantee, if you try to let go when you're hooked and you haven't practiced, not so easy. We have to learn how to let go at times when we are not hooked. So then when we're hooked, we know the path to take. The path will be to contract and hold on. One more question.
Okay, this is from someone on Zoom. Can you say something more about depression and being with people we love and ourselves when depression feels very thick, very real? Is the idea to not try to change whatever is happening, not necessarily trying to relieve it, tasting it, touching it, being with it as it is?
A great question. And I'll just say, there are so many answers to that, because there are so many layers and levels of the way that we can relate to depression and to someone, why they are depressed and what is our role with them. But I would say the primary thing, the first thing, and that this is one of the most difficult things, is can we just be with someone? Can we bear their suffering with them? Can we bear witness? Can we be willing to sit in our own discomfort long enough to be with them in their own pain, to companion them? Because to be depressed is one of the most lonely experiences. And to actually be willing to tolerate our own discomfort, to be able to sit with their discomfort. And I'm going to make that answer just as simple as that, because I think that's the first thing, because we have to watch the place inside of us that wants so desperately to change them so we feel more comfortable. We have to allow their process, and it might be to offer ways of serving or helping them. But first we have to be able to tolerate the discomfort ourselves. Companioning people through pain and loss and grief is the biggest gift we can give. Okay, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. It's 11:15, so at 11:25, I'll just ring the clackers. Please be back sitting at 11:25. It's about 9 minutes from now. Feel free to use my house or the restroom here, or go outside discreetly. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a few minutes. And this is a silent break. And so we'll do another period of meditation. Just find your comfortable, upright position with so you can really feel your pelvic floor against your cushion or your chair. So just notice here. What's it like to be here right in this moment, feeling the breeze and hearing the birds, feeling whatever is arising inside of you, without grabbing hold of anything or pushing it away, just noticing in this place of awareness, just being aware. In the midst of all of that, just relaxing and letting your diaphragm just breathing, moving like a jellyfish. So fluid and sweeping breaths. Feeling that breath in your low belly. Feeling this vast space in your low belly. And bring your awareness to the out breath. Just follow the out breath out, really relaxing any place that might be holding. Just letting it relax with the out breath. And you'll notice that there is a natural gap before the next in-breath comes. Your body is already fully oxygenated. Just notice that gap. Don't try to create it, make it longer. Just notice it and just rest for a moment in that natural gap, that pause. It might be very, very short, but it might just naturally lengthen when you begin to relax into it. In that moment of gap, there is a stillness, a quiet. all the teachings dissolve in that moment. Just this. A little death. A little letting go into that quiet, vast space. Unraveling on the out breath and becoming once again on the in breath. There's so little to do in that letting go. All you did was breathe out. Often this is all that letting go is just exhaling. Letting go can be as easy as relaxing the muscles of your body into deeper and deeper micro muscles down into the tendons and ligaments. Imagine swinging on the trapeze and just letting go of the bar. With the exhale, with letting go of just relaxing in your body. Just this now, just this moment. This is how we learn over and over, just to let go into this moment. Welcome back. I wanted to respond to the person on Zoom who asked the question about depression and how we can best serve in that. And I want to just speak to that for just a moment, because that's such a complex question. I think one of the primary things is that in depression, there is great, great suffering. And oftentimes it's because there is some deep feeling that it's unsafe to let go of the bar. And we have to trust that with all of we have to ask if they're open to our suggestions to help them with that suffering. And we have to then trust their own journey. It's so important, because I think often when we're depressed, there's a sense of being a loss of autonomy and a loss of control, and how important it is to allow someone to feel that that you're there to help if they want that, but to trust when they are ready to let go of the bar, they will be ready. And I want to just speak about the ego for a moment so that we can know a little bit, just to understand a little bit more when we talk about the ego, being identified with the ego versus being identified with a soul. And I just want to say that in Buddhism, we don't talk about the soul. In Buddhism, there is the idea that there is no soul, but we talk about Buddha nature and true nature. But I personally feel this deep connection, a soul connection, so I use soul. And the reason why I do that is because my experience of that is when all the thoughts cease, what remains, that is very soulful, it's very rich, it's very vast, it's very mysterious. It's that essence that goes on and on and on. And it actually is the essence that uses the struggle to grow. And that is this formless part of the fabric of the cosmos. So when I use soul, if you're a practicing Buddhist and don't want to use that, it would be more appropriate. And there's a whole teaching I could do on the difference between the two, but you could be using Buddha nature or true nature. So we come into this life innocent and with no idea of there being any separation. We're just that vast, open mystery. We're naked. Then our parents give us this little suit to put on, and we learn all these ways to make sure that we get love and all the ways to not feel bad And so we get more and more familiar with this little suit, and we get this feeling that this suit is us. And then we develop this self-concept around the suit. And then we have to defend that little somebody in this suit. And then we become super afraid. So we have to defend that little suit more and more and more until we have completely forgotten who we are. Our parents kind of interject this computer program into us, and then we just keep developing it because that was passed on to them from their parents, from their parents, from their parents. So the ego is not the problem. It's the belief and that it is what is true, and that it is us, and that it is the master of our life. And so the ego is a terrible master, but it's a fabulous servant. So it's learning how to use the ego as on your side, but to not be run by the ego like a dog on a leash. So the ego makes us feel that we are very separate, that we are independent, and built on survival. Or I should say built on not surviving. Thus, we're afraid on some level all the time. It can be a very deep existential fear all the time of not being loved, of not being accepted, of not doing it right, of not all the things we could say. So when we are afraid on some level, we tend to overcompensate and make decisions that further separate us from others and from ourselves. Is everybody getting a little vibe about that feeling inside of being run by that part? That is like, talk about a fish in water. We think we're that so much that we even forget that we are this vast open space. We've been so programmed to believe the egoic mind, which again, remember, the primary part of what drives the egoic mind is to get what it wants and to get away from what it doesn't want, what feels bad. And that's how the world spins. Even as you sit here, every motion or movement that happens is part of that. And that's not a bad thing, but that's how if we hurt, we get away from it as fast as we can. So our spiritual work is about returning back to that innocence. And how do we do that? Again, it's so simple. It's that coming back to this moment and this moment and this moment. And living life as it is, not as we want it to be, allows us to live this miracle of this sort of naked existence, not trying to control what we cannot control. So what remains when we are not defending the athlete, the adventurer, the spiritual seeker, the parent, the successful job person, whatever? What remains? And that's the place where we all meet, is both in our humanity, in that we all have an ego. And again, the ego is not a bad thing that we need to destroy, but we just need to know how to use it. But it's that sense that we forget who we actually are. And it's in that place that we meet, in that vastness. So when we're in, why I had you do that, following the out-breath, there is that sense of following the out-breath into that space. And just that resting there for that moment. Often I teach, bring your awareness to the space between the thoughts. We are so focused on the thoughts, but what's it like to, just for a moment here, just close your eyes and see what it's like to just let your awareness rest in that space between the thoughts. And then really come down into your body. So you're sensing your body. Now I'm going to ask you to go back to your thoughts and see what it's like to contract around these thoughts. Go into something that you're struggling with a little bit, or you're uncomfortable with, or maybe you felt like you did something wrong, or you're not going to be accepted. And feel the difference in your body. Notice where the energy in your body goes. And then once again, just let yourself just follow the out breath. Relax in your mind and your body. And again, come back into sense perception. So hearing the sounds, feeling the breeze, feeling your breath. So can you notice a difference? What do you notice? Just words.
Empty.
Quiet.
Expansive.
Expansive.
Flowing.
Flowing. And what do you notice when you contracted around thought again? Or I should say, when you went into thought again.
Limited.
What's that?
Limited.
Limited.
Rigid. Anxious.
Anxious.
Busy.
What was that?
Busy.
Busy.
Fantasy.
Fantasy. There's a poem by Rilke. It says, God speaks to each of us as he makes us, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing, embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand. So we all share our mortality. I was immortal until about 3 months ago, kinda. So I thought, even though I have studied death for so many years, I will say that I really had not been able to get close to my own experience of mortality until now. So we share this heartbreaking truth that our time here is finite, is limited. And everyone in this room, except for maybe just a couple of people, will be dead within 50 years. So just take a look around and think, and really look and see that every single person, except for just a couple, will be dead in 50 years. What's that like?
Hard to believe.
Mhm. Despite this, the pain and the loss we all go through as we face the mortality of ourselves, I really do believe it is that truth that allows us to wake up. I actually don't know, as I said before, I'm not sure if we can fully until we know that truth, because there is some part of us that is still, let's say, there's still, I think we have to let go on some level. And I think that's part of this practice, is that I do think that there's a level of waking up that happens, but there's something about, that's why I think that in the moment of death, it's when it's thought this just waking up, this absolute waking up happens in the moment of death, because we can't hold on anymore. We cannot hold on anymore. And that's a very difficult thing to be able to work with, is we can let go and let go and let go, but there are certain things we actually, I don't think, can let go of until we're in that moment of death. So that's why we live moment after moment after moment, really being here in this moment, because you sure want to be there in that moment when it happens. I think if we don't get fundamentally our mortality, that there's a, I should say that in a different way. There is a tenderness and a care and a kindness that comes when we really get our mortality. And it's when we really get cracked open that we feel this absolute preciousness with life. And I know that this is why I want to keep talking about this, so that we all really get to sit here together in that understanding of our mortality. We need more love, not less. Especially if love means witnessing and understanding. And in that love and understanding is, can we soften and bring love to our own shadow and our own shadowy behaviors? You know, I have done my share being blindly privileged, not wanting at times to take responsibility for my actions or feelings, and thus blaming others, being selfish, etc. All out of my vulnerability or ignorance. But what's helped me grow up from these behaviors was really, when I thought about it, 3 things: acceptance, often education, and a lot of nurturing and love from those around me. They forgave me. Have you ever been forgiven? And can you feel how much that forgiveness transformed you? Forgive each other. And let the losses help you grieve for all the losses. I have realized that the more that I can grieve my own losses, I can grieve the losses of the ecosystems, the species being lost, the climate. I can feel the losses and the huge, vast silence that is behind the noise and the breaking. So in the middle of our awareness that we could feel this sense of fullness and nearness of something that is sacred. That sort of quiet presence of life that's both personal and universal, that which is you and that is everything that is not you. So help your losses open you up more, because often our losses can shut us down. So everyone here, whether you have a terminal diagnosis or not, is losing something as we speak. Maybe it's your functionality or your memory, kids leaving home, a relationship, a job, a dream, the earth as we have known her. Just take a moment and just feel into, what are you losing right now? And what is changing in your life? Maybe it was an idea or an identification of yourself. As we inhale, we breathe in all of it, just the richness of life with all its terrors and all its wonders. The truth that everything terrible exists alongside everything miraculous. And in that understanding, it just breaks us open that much more. So if heartbreak is a given, so is resilience. And sometimes we have to just endure. And in that enduring, we soften. And in that softening, we find that everything is workable, even death. And the more you can rest in your broken, open heart without flinching, the more we can cherish life just as it is, and we can inhabit the life we were given. This life that you were given, just as you are, with all our fallibilities and brokenness. Just fully be in your life. A poem by Roshani. There is a brokenness out of which comes the unbroken, a shatteredness out of which blooms the unshatterable. There is sorrow beyond all grief, which leads to joy, and a fragility out of whose depths emerge strength. There is a hollow space too vast for words, through which we pass with each loss, out of whose darkness we are sanctioned into being. There is a cry deeper than all sound, whose serrated edges cut the heart as we break open to the place inside which is unbreakable and whole. So just in this moment, just dive into this moment. Eat this moment. Whatever your emotional experience, mental experience, there's a lovely story about a man who is wandering in the forest. And he suddenly notices that he is being chased by a tiger. And he runs as fast as he can, and he comes to the end of a cliff. And he looks down, and at the base of a cliff is yet another tiger. And so he sees that there's a vine that is going over the side of the cliff, and he starts to lower himself down the face of the cliff. And he pauses for a moment and holds the cliff hanging onto the vine, and he sees two mice that come out of the cliff and start gnawing on the vine. But he sees right next to the vine this beautiful, big, ripe strawberry. And he plucks the strawberry and eats it. And that strawberry is extraordinary. So at every moment, you are between two tigers on a vine that is being eaten by mice. So there is always a strawberry to eat. Eat the strawberry. So I like to think that opposite death is birth. And between these two sacred events is just impermanence, the mice eating the vine. Everything arising and passing away. And within this is this vast awareness that we find in this moment, in the silence, in the sensing, all that is unconditional and eternal. So what I would like to do is that in every moment, especially at the moment of death, I want to say extraordinary. So some reminders, some suggestions. Every day, remember your death. When you wake up and when you go to bed. Have gratitude. Gratitude practices might seem so cliche, but if you can have a gratitude practice at the beginning and the end of every day, speak to what you're grateful for. Sit down and meditate and become the mountain. Let things arise and pass away. Learn to tolerate discomfort. Learn to see that everything is impermanent and nothing is personal. Be with folks who you can sit quietly with and who you can talk about death with openly. Listen, listen, listen from your belly. Get to know the feelings of true nature versus your egoic mind. Get to know the emotional state, the feelings in your body. Learn to say yes. So practice saying yes and. Say yes to everything that's handed to you in your life. Find the humor in everything. Grieve fully. And then let it go. Many more things I could say, but I'll leave it there. And I want to just now open it up for a conversation, for your thoughts and feelings, for what's coming up on Zoom. Questions? We'll go from there. If there's somebody.
I have a couple questions. Harley says, in the last talk, Tori, you spoke about the honorableness of suicide. Could you speak more to that?
So for those of you who are not here last time, I spoke about the noble spiritual choice to end one's life if one is in a position where the suffering is so great. And I was speaking about that I was holding that as a noble choice in my own situation and preparing the situation, preparing what needs to happen to make that decision if I decide to go that route. What I meant by that is, and this is a very sensitive conversation, because I am in no way saying that it would be running away from my life to try to get into a better life or whatever, or that is a simple decision. More what I'm saying is that I think it is a noble decision that one can make if we are bodhisattvas. Our role as a bodhisattva, our commitment is to alleviate the suffering of all beings and to not cross over until all beings have woken up. My experience of myself is that there may come to a point where the suffering is so great that it feels like a noble decision that one can make. I have had a number of people in my life who suffered so intensely that they took their life. And it felt like a very, very noble decision on their part. There are many people that I have been with who have said they wanted to take their life, who I felt that at that moment would have been a loss in their own journey, their own of what was still ahead and what they were still grappling with, and that it was just trying to be an exit strategy. Can you feel the difference? What I mean? This is a very fine line, and only you know. But I guess the primary thing is that our society has a lot of, there's a lot of stigma around suicide. And under certain circumstances, I think suicide has to be included as a noble choice, because I actually think once we have that choice, it allows us to actually decide to live. And that feels like a very important thing. If we feel like we have no way out, that's often what makes us want to take our life. But when we know we have that as an out, there can be a real decision, the choice to stay here. My sense of myself is that since I have so much curiosity, that I will probably choose to stay for quite some time in the face of a lot of discomfort. Yes, wait a minute, does that answer her question? There's more. I see you all coming.
I think so. There are a couple more. Do you want to take?
It's related to your.
No.
It's related.
It's related,
Yeah.
Tori.
Okay.
Can you speak to that same issue as it pertains to dementia? Please.
Yeah, so, I mean, that is a tough one. I feel it has to be the choice of the person who's making that choice. It can't be somebody else making that choice for them. And that has to be a choice that is contemplated and talked about and sat with and meditated with for a long period of time consciously. And that my experience with dementia is that it is heartbreaking that it went beyond that point. And then that choice is gone. Yeah. So anybody else from here? And then we'll go to online.
Well, I have nothing to say on that. I thought a lot about this, and I'm really appreciative that it just come up. I've myself sat with the idea of suicide. And had people, as we all have probably, but I just wanted to offer that there are different ways of talking about it. Like suicide is a word, but there's also, we could call it death with dignity, and also like euthanasia.
Yeah.
Our suicide almost has a violent way, and it often is such a lonely act.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just praying that part of what happens in society as we mature is reimagining languaging, reimagining scenarios, being open, and new words. Because I like death with dignity and euthanasia as much kinder, softer terms.
Yeah, I haven't used that word all last time. It was interesting because it was brought in by the person who asked the question. And you're right, there is kind of like a little whoa to it. So, and in the world that I'm in right now, as I am getting, I'm looking into both the legal side in Colorado, so there, and I'll speak to that. It's the right to die. And one of the things that's interesting about that is that to do the legal way to do that, one has to be able to do it, to give it yourself, which is a very difficult thing with ALS at that stage. But it's also that it's a very fast death, which doesn't allow one to go through the stages of a natural dying process. So it has been suggested that one just stops eating and drinking. So,
Yes,
and
yeah.
that's a choice
Yeah.
that would be it, so.
Okay, this is from Kaya. You are speaking about how to use the experience or how you are using the experience of your own death to wake up more and more. Are you learning anything that applies to using the experience of having death happen to others, ones you love so much? And how we can use that experience of profound loss similarly? And any thoughts about how to go on in that situation? If this is off topic, feel free to answer it another time.
Oh, it's such a great question. So one of the things, I'll speak to that briefly, but then I'm gonna say in the coming times that we meet, I'm gonna be talking about the actual preparing for death, bringing death in more closely. So as we get sort of closer and closer to preparing for death and the view of death and the view of how we help others die. And so this feels like a really important thing that we get more familiar with just being around death. And how do we see, I think in the preparing for our own death, this is very sort of, how do we live our life? But I think as we actually get more into the nitty gritty of it, it gets very, it really brings our mortality into focus. So I've been kind of much more bigger in general, and my hope is that we'll get more and more down into the nuts and bolts of it, especially in how to help others prepare and how to be with them when they die. This question is, all I can say is, wow, I feel as though, I mean, I have been with so many people when they died as a rescue ranger and then as a chaplain and then, you know, singing for the choir, being around the whole concept of death and being around people who are just about to die. That my experience now, I have more of an understanding of what is being let go. And there's something about also just the being with and the witnessing and the bearing witness, the being able to sit in silence with somebody. And the allowing of our own, again, the letting go of somebody, the letting go of our, when we learn how to let go of our own existence, our own life, I won't say existence, our own body, there's a deeper understanding for me anyway about the letting go of somebody else. And there's something about also a freeing up of knowing that their death is not a problem. They will be okay. That I know more how to relate to my own grief. Does this begin to answer her question? Is there anything else, Paya, you want to ask? Okay. We can talk more about that.
One more.
Yeah.
From Kathleen West.
Okay.
Do you think that death with a capital D happens, in quotes, in a moment?
Oh, that's a great question. So in the Tibetan Buddhism and in most of Buddhism, there is a stage at which we die, meaning that we die through the elements. First we die, I believe it's the air element, and then I think it's the earth element first. If anybody here knows, I'm forgetting this, but we go through the elements, with the last element being consciousness and hearing. And that, so the breathing will stop, but there's a whole lot more that goes on until the person is considered actually dead, both from a medical standpoint, well, actually, from the Western medical standpoint, as soon as the body has stopped breathing for a certain amount of time and the heart has stopped, the person is considered dead. But there is a thought that the consciousness and the awareness remains around the body, can remain around the body for quite some time. And that but it's the hearing is the last to go, which is why it is really important when you're around people who have died to know that their consciousness can still hear you. And so, and if their awareness of what is happening, I mean, I just can't say how many times I was in circumstances where the person might have been very, very troubled, or the family relationship might have been very, very troubled. And that consciousness that was still around, the feeling of it was just such troubledness until that consciousness left. Or, you know, I would, with my stepfather who died, my stepsister came in the room. He had been dead for a long time. And she came in the room and just couldn't let go. And he came back to life and was alive for hours more, struggling. And then the next time he died, she stayed out of the room and grieved, and he was able to go. But there's a lot, that moment of death. So I would say, no, death is not in the moment. Death happens over time. And that amount of time, I do think in some ways, our consciousness is more freed up to leave when we know how to let go. There's more of a freedom for it to leave the body and go on freely without having to hang around for any length of time. Yeah, lots I could say about that, but that I'll say that definitely it doesn't happen in a moment.
Well, speaking of the trouble and the leaving, you know, the trapeze is an interesting image of the letting go. And then the other image I was sitting with that was arising as you were talking about that was the image of like sitting, and imagine that there's a rope hanging next to you and it just keeps swinging and knocking you, reminding you of something that you're not looking at. Actually, it's the opposite. It's not the thing you're clinging to, but the thing you're not dealing with. And one of the ways I experience that is like troubled relationships that aren't resolved. And the feeling for me around death is like, better take care of those things. And I'm wondering, I mean, if you might speak to that, or your experience when you got the news, of were there things that you knew needed to on that level had to be dealt with, and just the process of repair, I guess.
Well, I can say just on a general universal level that may we all be repairing quickly in those places where there have been a tear in the fabric, because we never know. And that's whether or not that person is still alive or not, repair the tear. In my own situation, I'll just say that I've lived my life in such a way that I have no regrets. And so I had no unfinished business then. So I feel blessed with that. There are so many people that I would like to be spending time with. That's the thing that's hard for me, is the amount of people I would like to be spending time with who are wanting to spend time with me, and I don't have time. And it's the having to say no, and to say no to some relationships, even just saying they're ending now, because I know that I probably won't in this lifetime have enough time to really spend time with people. And that's a really big letting go for me. And it's also something I was going to say earlier, was one of the things that I'm learning is with the amount of help and support that is coming to me, is learning how to just say, when someone offers, to just say yes, thank you, without putting pillows down, as we say, without padding things, to say, oh gosh, you know, there's a lot for you, and I know, and I got, you know, all the things like, do I deserve it, and you're a little shame, or whatever. Just yes and thank you. And and I want to just say that when we say yes to help, it is a great service to others. People want to serve. Anything else before we close?
So I think I just want to say this, but I think there's a question there too. Like, first of all, fuck, I love you. Like, this is like, It feels really good to be up here. It's been a long time. And,
So good to see you.
yeah, it's hard to think, under the context and circumstances. And so my parents are both, unwell and like terribly off. And they're doing it the opposite as you. So that's really present. There's a lot of death and a terminal illness. And I'm feeling like, I think walking in here, I've just been mad about it. But I think like sitting today, it actually just feels like I don't think I have the capacity. Like I doesn't feel like I have the capacity to like witness. Because it's not the death. I've watched people die before. It's how hard and like the way, I mean, like ALS is terrible. The way my parents are dying is terrible. Like it's the deterioration that's so painful to watch. And my girlfriend has some potentially chronic stuff coming up. And like, partly so I could just break. Like I personally don't know if I have the capacity. So I've been kind of angry about it all. But I think sitting with it's like, I just don't know if I can do it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that I could come to that in from two different directions. One is that to be honest about what we have the capacity for is so honest and so fair. And if that's the case, then to let go of the resentment around it or the struggle against how they're doing it. Right? To let them do their life their way. And if you don't have the capacity to watch that, then to keep loving them, to because it's the bringing in more suffering that we want to avoid, our own struggles to their struggles. Right? And the other thing is to say yes and. Say yes and to your not feeling that you have the capacity. Right?
Yeah. It's hard to know if it's like I'm buying into the like if I have the capacity, I'm just afraid.
Of course you have the capacity on one level. Of course you have the capacity on one level, and of course you don't, right? So of course that, but I would say in this moment, which is all we have, in this moment, it feels like you don't have the capacity. That's all you have. The next moment you may have the capacity. So don't set yourself up for later. It's in this moment, that's all we're relating to. In this moment, it feels too big and we say yes to that. Right? In this moment. And then that allows you to be available to the next moment, whatever that brings. And I would say if there's anything about that feeling that we don't have the capacity, is it might be that we don't have the capacity to be there open and available. Right? You might not have that capacity. It means you might go and have all you could do would be there and to be in resentment and anger and frustration and loss and grief. And that might be what is calling. But stay in the moment. And keep saying yes to that. Okay. I'm going to read one last poem by Hafiz. It's called A Crystal Rim. The earth lifts its glass to the sun, and light is poured. A bird comes and sits on a crystal rim, and from my forest cave I hear singing. So I run to the edge of existence and join my soul in love. I lift my heart to God, and grace is poured. An emerald bird rises from inside me and now sits upon the beloved's glass. I have left the dark cave forever. My body has blended with his. I lay my wing as a bridge to you so that you can join us singing. So if we can gather all the things we think are beautiful and painful and hard and gorgeous and that we love and that we are embarrassed by and we are ashamed of, and we gather it all to our heart equally with such courage and such bravery so that we don't turn away from anything in life. We say yes. And we dedicate this time together and this love and this exploration of death, this openness, all of our wisdom, all of our settling, all of our inquiry. We dedicate all of this to the benefit of all beings who we are so totally inseparable from and connected to. I just love you all. And I'm going to sneak out and Kathy's going to give some announcements.
I just, I just wanted to say a little bit about Dana. For those who are not familiar with that, an ancient Buddhist tradition, Dana is generosity. And I guess whatever you give, how little, how much, it's asked that you give with a generous heart, with a sense of generosity and with the desire for abundance, both for yourselves and for everyone else. Tori is sustained by the generosity of Dana, and we are sustained by her continuation of teaching us and offering us the teachings that we're all so hungry for and in need of today. So I will be here. If you want to give something today, that's fine. I'll be here to receive it, and you can still give donations by Venmo and PayPal. And yeah, that's about it. If you want to be on the Golden Bowls email list, let me know and I'll make sure that happens. And everyone who is here today will be included in the next invitation for September 26th. Her Venmo, yes, I will when we get outside, okay? I don't have it in front of me. Yeah. Okay, thanks for coming. Yeah, thank you. No, not yet. Yeah, thank you though. So